one Stanford Steve.
Hey, you know what we need to do? We need to put up a poll next week of who's got the best bald head out here.
No, it's not fair because I don't shave my head.
I got the biggest.
Of course that's not fair.
And Steven doesn't want to be left out. All right, we're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so it's a lot of fun out here. We're obviously expecting a huge matchup in Death Valley tonight. A lot on the line in that matchup, but there's also another game that has a lot on the line. Georgia taking on Ole Miss. Ole Miss already has 2 losses this season, right? So they could be completely out of the CFP, just like these 2 teams today. Okay, so Jaxson Dart last week against Arkansas, he had a really great game. Do you expect him to play the same way today against Georgia?
No, because this isn't Arkansas. When you look at Georgia and what they do to you defensively, we saw it live and up close in Texas in their biggest spot. When they had their back against the wall, they played their best game defensively all year against a great Texas offense. And it's just the idea of Ole Miss. We haven't seen them win these games when they've had this opportunity. It's not all Lane Kiffin's fault, but Ole Miss is 1-24 against top 2 teams all time. And I get it. They haven't had the roster to compete in those games a lot of times, but this is it. They went all in the portal. They went all in with money, the roster, and they got their 2 losses. The playoff expanding, like that was the goal. They were supposed to make the playoff. They obviously still can, but they're not going to do it without a win today.
So I do believe what's different amongst this Ole Miss team this year versus previous years, they're top 10 in run defense, third down defense, red zone defense, and also sacking the quarterback. They're number 1 in the country with 42. Right? They have 3 guys right now, Steve, in the top 20 in sacking the quarterback in college football right now. What also makes me worry is a guy in Carson Beck for the University of Georgia who has 11 interceptions in the last 5 games. I truly feel like he misses Brock Bowers and Lad McCollum. He doesn't have those security blankets that he's accustomed to having, and that's why he's being so sporadic. He's not seeing the field correctly as well.
That's the key. He's not seeing the field. Guys are open. Like you went back to the Alabama game in that first half. You know, he makes a check to wide receiver. Wide receiver doesn't get the check. He throws a screen. It's a pick. That's not on him. I know wide receivers don't want to hear excuses, but you got to be on the same page as your quarterback. And last week against Florida, rivalry game, if Lagway doesn't get hurt, I don't know what happens in that game. But I get the concern with Carson Beck. I just feel like when his back, we've seen what he's done last year at Auburn. You know, still competing against Alabama in the second half this year. Texas overcoming the interceptions last week, overcoming the interceptions. So there's just more trust I have because I've seen Georgia do it, and I like the roster around them. And again, the Georgia defense should be why they win today.
I am concerned, though, because we still have yet to see the good Carson Beck, because we know it's there. And it's funny, I was actually talking to a coach that recruited him coming out of high school. And he said, hey, his junior year, we were super high on him. Like, we compared him to Andrew Luck. And he said he had a couple of guys that played on, you know, skill guys, wide receivers, running backs, that played lower-level college football, graduated before him, and then his senior year, he wasn't quite the same player. He's like, I feel like I'm watching the same thing over again. And so now he's got 8 picks in 3 games. Like, he's got 3 the last 2 games. That's not sustainable. No. And the crazy thing is, and I guess this is a compliment to Georgia's defense, the fact that they've still won those games. Most games, if you throw 3 picks, you should lose that football game.
They also have Frazier and Etienne now healthy fully. Frazier had some issues with practice, putting the ball on the turf. It's hard to gain Kirby's trust. He has it back. So that's another aspect I look, just get some balance and don't be behind the sticks. Like, you look at these situations, going back to the Bama game, like they had to throw the football because they were down so much. Come out with a better start. They did that in Texas, and that's why I like them today.
I also feel like for the University of Georgia, in a big matchup like today, I want to see that defensive line be ferocious like they were against Texas. Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, 2 guys who are going to be first-round draft picks in 2025. You got to play like your hair's on fire.
And the best thing about Georgia, you saw it at A1 right on the top platform in that Texas game. If you try quick game, they're the best at tackling in space. If you try and go the deep game, they're going to sack your quarterback and they're going to turn you over. And that whole game flipped on a sack fumble when they got Quinn Ewers. So again, I've seen it with Georgia. I haven't seen it with Ole Miss. That's why I like them.
Who do you think's winning this one? Georgia? For sure.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned DJ Lagway.
I don't know about for sure. Don't be throwing for sure on me.
Before we get out of this real quick, this feels like SEC, Ohio State, Penn State. Like, this feels like everything is lined up for Ole Miss to finally get this one, but we also know that, like, you don't get this one.
That's right.